Hey YouTube, today me and my dad are going to be bleeding brakes on a Chevy Silverado. Here's how to do it. Here's some things we're going to talk about before we get started.
So we made a list, and they're not necessarily in any specific order, but some of the things we're going to talk about is personal protection when you're bleeding brakes. Recommend using gloves and eye protection. There's different ways to bleed brakes. Today we're just going to use the two-person method where one person pumps the brake pedal and the other person opens the bleeder screw. There's tools for doing this. There's pressure pumps. There's gravity bleeding, which we also use today, and we'll show you how we did that. Some other things we want to talk about is brake fluid type. Make sure you have the correct brake fluid for your vehicle. Look on the lid of the master cylinder. Shine it up there. This truck here takes DOT3. DOT3 brake fluid is probably the most common fluid you're going to come across, but a lot of the new vehicles have different fluids in them. DOT4. Make sure you have the right stuff. They're not all compatible. So we've checked our fluid level and we filled our fluid level. Always before you bleed your brakes, you want to make sure your fluid level's topped right up. Using fresh fluid from a sealed container. The reason for that is brake fluid has the ability to absorb moisture, especially DOT3 brake fluid. DOT5 doesn't, but your DOT3 brake fluid has the ability to absorb moisture right out of the air. The more moisture in your brake fluid, the poorer the quality. That just actually brings the boiling point of your brake fluid down. Some other things to consider here is types of brake systems. This brake system has front disc brakes, rear disc brakes, and they're divided rear brakes and front brakes. Some cars and different types of vehicles might have a split brake system, which would mean they might use the left front wheel, the right rear wheel would be on one system, and the right front wheel and the left rear wheel might be on another system. Generally, how you can determine this is if the reservoir on your master cylinder sits level. Let's show them that. You see up there? The bottom of this reservoir, the ports are level. Sometimes if you have a split brake system, these ports, one will be higher than the other and sitting on an angle. But generally, your system is divided into front brakes or rear brakes. The old style master cylinders, the metal ones with the lids, when you take the lid off, you'll see a small reservoir and a large reservoir. The large reservoir would be for the disc brakes, the small reservoir would be for the drum brakes. Nowadays, we're using four-wheel disc brakes. They might not be divided the same way. What else we got on the list, Caden? Reasons for bleeding our brakes. Why would that be? Maybe we want to pump some fresh fluid through it because we want uncontaminated fluid or fluid that's not saturated with water. Get out some rust and debris out of the system. Anytime you've opened the brake system, so replace the component, we do not want air. So we're going to bleed the brakes, we're going to remove the air from the system. That's the idea. And what's the most important thing right here? Number 4.
Because you saw it on YouTube doesn't mean you're an expert.
Perfect. So, we filled up our brake fluid reservoir today with DOT3 brake fluid. We've changed our components, our lines are all tight, our bleeder screws are all tight. But before we get started bleeding it, what we're going to do to help ourselves out is we're going to gravity bleed the system. Come over to this wheel here. What gravity bleeding is opening the bleeder screw without anybody doing anything. And sometimes it'll take a minute, sometimes it'll take a few minutes, and it'll just, when it starts dripping out like this, that means you've gravity bled fluid directly to this wheel. We've already done this, that's why it happens so quickly. So open the bleeders, wait a few minutes. When it starts dripping, snug them back up. Now if you're doing something, maybe you're using some old components that you're bleeding, some important things that you might want to have is a 6-point socket or a 6-point wrench, so less chance of stripping your bleeder screws. Make sure your bleeder screws are able to thread in and out. And also, if it's an old, really rusty one, you might want to take the bleeder screw right out. There's a little pinhole in the bottom that is connected to this hole on the other side. Make sure it's clear and put them back in. So we've gravity bled our brakes now. That's going to save us a lot of work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pump the brake pedal. Pop up in there. What does pumping the brake pedal do, Caden?
It bleeds the brakes.
Not quite. We're going to let some fresh fluid into the master cylinder pistons, and we're going to push that fresh fluid out to the wheels.
Seems not very...
Go ahead and push it hard. Perfect. Let it go. Slowly let it go till it returns. Now what this is doing is this is putting fluid out towards the wheels. It's also making the brake pads and components that we have already installed come up in contact with the surface, the brake rotor or the brake drum. Give it another pump there, Caden. One more. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the farthest bleeder screw away from the master cylinder. In this case, it's going to be obviously the right rear of the vehicle. And I'm going to tell Caden to press the brake pedal down. Caden's going to hold the brake pedal down without releasing it until I'm ready. If he releases it before I'm ready, he's going to actually let air back into the system.
That's not very good.
That's not very good. We're trying to get rid of the air. So let go of the brakes now because you're going to need to rest your legs. All right, Caden, press the brake pedal down and hold it down. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm holding it down.
Now I'm going to open the bleeder screw and close it again. Now, Caden, go ahead and release the brake pedal and press. Perfect. And press it down again. Hold it down.
Holding it.
Now I'm going to open the bleeder screw. Okay, let off the brake pedal.
Okay.
Press it down again. Hold it down.
Pardon?
Hold the brake pedal down.
Yeah.
When I open the screw, what I'm looking for is a steady stream of fluid to come out with no air bubbles. That looks perfect. Okay, let it up, Caden.
Okay.
Now we're going to go to the left rear wheel. This is the second farthest away from the master cylinder. Okay, go ahead and press the brake pedal down.
Okay.
Hear that little spit? That's air coming out.
After you've loosened the screw up, it gets easier for me to push it down at the very end when you need me to push it up.
That's right. Okay, let go of the pedal.
Okay.
Push it down again.
Okay.
Let it up.
Okay.
Push it down again. Nice steady stream with no air bubbles. That's what we're after. During this process, we want to make sure that we keep our reservoir full. If the reservoir gets empty, it'll suck air back into the system. You have to start all over again. You can release the pedal now. Now we're going to do the right front. Okay, press the pedal down, Caden.
Yeah.
Holding it down.
Yes.
Little spurt of air there. Okay, let it up.
Yeah.
Okay, push it down.
Okay. Now it's easier. Let's screw down.
Looks like our gravity bleeding was successful. Hardly any air in the system whatsoever. Okay, let it up.
Okay.
And the last wheel. Press the brake pedal down.
Okay. After you've loosened the screw, it's easier. If I didn't already say.
Ooh. Let's get a socket for this one.